Shake it up. Shaking up the garbage we feed on. Shaking up our wondrous being. Let's begin the reform. Even if just for a moment, to share the climb and the suffocating skin. Let's shake it up right now. Let's shake it up right now. Let's shake it up right now. Shake it up.
Hello there, welcome to Being Human, shaking up our wondrous being. Let's begin the reform. My name is Ray Coates.
And I'm Tracy Wilson.
Tracy, lovely to be with you. How are you?
Yeah, as always.
Good,
I'm
fantastic.
Good. How are you?
Good. Yes, I'm fine, thank you very much. Yep, lovely to be with you. And here we are again. This is the second time. Being human together. We will have others joining us, no doubt. People can catch up in replay as well. You can share this because it is human content very, very much. It's about affirming life, improving life, helping us navigate our way through this thing called life. And we agreed last time. We agreed the date and time, and we agreed the subject. Can you shed a bit of light, give us a reminder of what the topic for discussion of us, but also others that are joining us is today, please?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about connecting with self, bringing us back into that mind-body connection. A lot of the time we go on to a bit of a hamster wheel in life and we don't always realise it. And I think we discussed that in the last episode, where we can hit a stage in life where we're just kind of plodding along. Sometimes we neither feel good nor bad. We're just going through the
motions. Going through the motions, yeah.
Health issues, life starts to take over, and it can feel like everything's going against us, and that there's nothing we can do because this is just life. This is just what happens. But actually, what I've learned over the past few years with my own struggles is there's a lot more we can do than what we're often led to believe, or we're often told in life. It can be very easy to go into a place of feeling like everything's happening to us, rather than for us, or so basically that's basically it. Just reconnecting with us and reclaiming a bit of power over ourselves.
I like that. I like that. And I think, like the hamster on the wheel, I'm sure it is entertaining for the hamster. Last week was a lot about fish.
Yes.
There was a fish tank and a lobster pot, and now you're kicking it. Yeah, exactly. Now you're kicking us off with a hamster wheel, which is brilliant. But I'm sure there is kind of some level of engagement, enjoyment for the hamster, we assume, because it does what it does. But is it really living its fullest promise of life? And I think when you said about taking power, because you've openly shared just a moment ago, you said your own struggles.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna, put my hat in the ring with that one as well. I have day-to-day struggles at times in terms of an outlook on certain things, and I identify it. And I think that's good for people to know who are joining us. That's the being human part. So I'm so grateful to you for beginning that, to say, you've had your own struggles, and at times I'm sure you do. So it could sound, people could think about connecting with self. Woo, that sounds a bit, exactly. Woo, that sounds a bit. Now it doesn't to me. And it might not to others, but it might to some. Yeah. So could you give us a little bit from your experience and the ways that you help others, what that actually means. What does that mean from a human point of view to connect more with yourself? How would you describe that?
Well, I think about this all the time, the best way to describe it. So let's see how it will come out.
Fair
Um,
enough.
so what I tend to do with others and with myself, obviously, is we can, like I said earlier, go through life feeling like everything's just happening to us. That can be with health. Well, yeah, let's stick with health, because a lot of the time, even when we're just feeling tired and we're putting it down to age, just life, it's just how life is, that belief in itself can stop us trying to do anything about it because it feels like it's out of our control.
Mm.
So what I do is I try to help people reconnect with themselves to see what's actually at the root of these issues.
Mm-hmm.
When we go to the doctors or any kind of professionals, sometimes things can come back on paper that everything's fine. Like I've had it myself. The bloods are all normal. Everything's fine, but I felt far from normal. I felt like that they're kind of disregarding how I'm feeling, like I'm making it up, like I'm, just not very helpful. They do what they can do, but it's not very helpful to me, who's still feeling not like myself and much the same as others. I had a lady recently, actually. She'd messaged me at the end of her tether. She's been diagnosed fibromyalgia, the anxiety, numerous other things, and she keeps going back to the doctors, and she feels like these other issues that are coming up are all related, but the doctor's saying, well, they're not. And then she's just left feeling like stuck. And I completely identified with that, as would I think a lot of people. I come from an NHS background. I kind of seen it with my own eyes. People coming in and me telling them what their bloods say, giving them the advice from a healthcare professional, but then that's still not helping them because they're still feeling how they feel. What I do is I help find out what's kind of triggered how they're feeling. Because if everything's normal in bloods, there's often something going on emotionally. When something starts showing up physically in the body and our behaviours, how we're reacting to life, there's often something unresolved emotionally. And that's not necessarily always a big traumatic thing. Sometimes it's just life, all the peaks and troughs of life gathering up and weighing the body down. So I help people get to the root and kind of try and pull it out so that they can stop trying to manage symptoms and start trying to kind of live again. Yeah.
I'm going off in a slightly different direction now, but I know you'll appropriately follow me there.
Yeah.
Regardless of belief system, if people feel we're a vessel containing a spirit or a soul, so something within us is the spirit of us, and we have this physical being that carries that spirit around.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely not promoting that thought, but neither am I saying that thought is wrong. Even if that is the case, then we're still being.
Yeah.
So we still have the human experience.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes I think there's a reasonable argument to be had for that feeling, if you like, which some people could say spirit, soul, something inside us that isn't just the physical. It's been referenced before, which is horrible, really. The meat sack, the meat sack of us, the physicality of us. Yeah. Sometimes I think there's a tendency. Health is a massively important thing, as I know you know. For us to be successful in life, we need to look after the physical of us. Very important. But I wonder sometimes, and it's not a criticism of others, do you think sometimes people think almost that the physical is something separate? You know,
Yeah.
and that's why at times perhaps they do, which isn't always wrong, go to an external source in order to help themselves feel better. But from what you've just said, that doesn't always cut it, so to speak, because there's still some other stuff going on. So people have this tendency to think, right, I'm going to sort out the outside of the car, but inside,
Yeah.
don't let anybody look inside, because that's full of proverbial.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't want to, not necessarily, and when I say don't want to, I don't mean that they are deliberately avoiding it
No.
or that they're scared to go there. It's a natural protective mechanism, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
from the subconscious, from the mind. Everything we do is to protect ourselves on some level. So nobody's deliberately trying to stop themselves from getting better.
No.
The body likes to be in a familiar state. And that familiar state isn't always necessarily good for us. It's just whatever it's been used to all this time is what it wants to stay at. And it sometimes needs retrained to be shown another familiar state that's healthier. And that doesn't necessarily feel comfortable. And that's why when people start changing diets, or like if somebody's been on abusing drugs, alcohol, and then they try and come off those things, the body reacts negatively. And that can then sometimes make them go back on those things because it feels so intense. But because the body's been so used to those things for a while, it's like, that's what we're used to, that's what we're sticking with. And sometimes there's just a little bit more support needed to get your body reconnected with your mind again, to show it a new sense of familiar, so that you're able to move forward. Yeah.
Wow. I want to stay there a bit. A sense of familiar that's healthier.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely stunning. And I think at this moment, we have had people diving in and out watching, but we know it's here replay as well. So I want people to comment on, the relationship of the inner person, the connecting with self, and the physicality from their point of view. And that's such a strong thing that you've said, because we need that as much as perhaps, I can't think off the top of my head of a physical ailment that we might have. I've gone there fairly basic, but like a bit of an aching back. Or perhaps going into a stomach. Maybe stomach's a better one because there's a lot of emotion there as well. Yeah. But we've got some stomach stuff going on, and I've become somebody who I experience less emotion here in the sense of it doesn't limit me as much as it used to. Obviously, my throat cancer. If I get emotional, it affects me less here than it used to. But it does affect me in the stomach at times.
Yeah.
And it has done for a long time. So I could... Go on.
I might be able to read out a little brief description of what stomach can often mean emotionally.
Oh, wow. Would that be to hand? Because that could be interesting. Live support. And I think while you're looking, I want to just say to those that are joining us, replay, live, this is about the most human. The words, I'm going to share this, Tracy, because it really came strongly to me a moment ago. Yeah. Being, belief, be, beautiful, belong.
Yeah.
They all have two letters in common, which is be. So I think in the world that we live in, where perhaps people feel, they don't belong. They don't have a belief. We have all of that because we're being. So I feel there's something in this humanity that you're sharing in regard to what some people could get a little bit confused by, thinking back to what we joked around with earlier, the woo-woo. Yeah. So belief coding, could be something that somebody might have, well, hold on a minute. I don't particularly want my beliefs to be coded, but
Yeah.
it's a way of forming patterns, what you said a moment ago. Familiar, but a healthier version of familiar.
Changing that code. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's what your brain's wired to think is normal for you.
yeah.
It'll continue wanting that normal until you show it that another sense of normal is safe.
Wow.
And that's not always easy to do if for whatever reason you've got that current belief or feeling that, and it's not necessarily conscious, because a lot of the time consciously people will say, well, I don't think that, I don't believe that, but it's almost like there's a program somewhere within the brain from something in the past where it's like, oh, I'm just going to keep this open for a little bit longer and make sure, remind you of it every so often to make sure, it's safe to go there again. And that's what causes, like, when you start to feel anxiety or whatever, that alarm going off in your body, because it's like, right, we've got a program somewhere that's still open that shows that this thing that you might be wanting to do might not be safe. And that might not necessarily mean that it's not safe. It could just be that there's something familiar in that program that it thinks is the same thing, and it's not. So it can get a little bit confused. So what I do with people is I find out, where that confusion started and help to reroute it so that it matches how you feel now or how you want to feel now, because that old pattern might have been something that was needed years ago. It's there for a reason, but it's maybe just got a little bit irrational, confused. And it's just wired you up slightly.
So potentially it protected you then.
Yeah.
It was a safety net then. It was a control mechanism then that worked. And then, of course, it's activated. So it's remained on.
Yeah.
And then it actually also reactivates in certain circumstances.
Yeah.
So to be able to identify that and work with that with somebody like yourself is really, really good for well-being. And again, I want to reach out to others who are joining in terms of how they would define connecting with self. And also subjects that we're talking about, what do they feel about it? Because what you've just explained, my ears are hearing a heck of a lot of science, but also spiritual too. And I feel within my experience of life, I'm both of those things and so much more.
Absolutely,
I don't see this duality of science, spirituality, because I don't believe in that warring nature.
No.
I think there's science in being spiritual.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if I'd have waited for science to catch up with some of the things that I've used recently, I would probably sat here without a thyroid.
All right.
But for me, trying different things over the year and helping myself through the autoimmune condition and thyroid issues, I've managed to avoid that really extreme, operation of having a major organ removed. But going forward to now, I've been working with a neuroscientist recently, as you know, around the things that I've used, like belief coding, with specifically belief coding for these kind of experiments that we've been doing. So we've been working, me and a few other ladies have been working with menopausal women and how their minds and bodies are connected and why that might be what's causing symptoms to be worse. Because if you think about it, if you take something particularly like menopause, fibromyalgia, or any of these labels, everybody experiences them slightly different. So you've got to kind of question, why is that? If it's a label and there's changes in the body, would that not mean we should all experience it the same? So what we've found is, especially like with me with the Graves' disease, with the ladies with menopause, a lot of these symptoms flare up more in people with stronger emotions that have maybe still been trapped inside of them. So you might find some menopausal women kind of glide glide through it. They all, they have healthy lifestyles. They might feel some symptoms, but it doesn't, it doesn't affect their lives. But then some women, whether it's Graves' disease or menopause, it can really turn their life upside down. They can feel depressed. They can feel like suicidal. They can feel, it can just completely change their whole personalities of who they are. And although what we found out is even people that were on estrogen and getting treated medically, some of these people were still experiencing the symptoms really extremely. And that's because they weren't being treated emotionally. They weren't being treated to why they experience it in the way they do. So yeah, where medicines are needed to kind of help balance the hormones out, because that is all happening. Once you find out why your body's responding to those hormonal changes in the way that it is, you can rewire, recode, call it what you like. Your body stops sending out those signals. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we are changing what's happening with the estrogen, because like menopause is going to happen. Yeah. But menopause is just literally one day in a woman's life, but it feels like it lasts 20 years. Menopause itself, that change is one day.
Yeah, wow.
So all the symptoms, when you work on the root cause of why your body's responding to that change, not making the change not happen, but why your body responds in the way it does, you can change how it's responding so the symptoms aren't as bad. And to me, that's just plain and simple how it works with all medical conditions. You're not necessarily working on the condition or the symptoms, you're working out why your body's responding in the way it is.
I think this will make sense to you and those listening, and I think there might be a little bit of laughter around this, hopefully. That even makes sense to me, and I'm a man.
Yeah.
To use the example you've given, because it's the entire being. And I know I've not researched this, but I know there are discussions around male menopause.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So changes that, take place as a man gets older. But keeping it with menopause, for me, it makes sense because it's the entire being, whatever the example is. So whatever the physical example is, it's the entire being, and we can't bypass emotion.
No.
We can't bypass emotion because it's part of who we are. It's part of the human makeup.
In life, it's how we respond to other people. It's part of how we're behaving. Everything is triggered by an emotional response. So even if you think you're not an emotional person, that in itself is an emotion, is an emotional response to that statement. So everything that we do is an emotional response. Yeah.
And it also makes sense as well that a physical response to a physical condition isn't enough, and it isn't that it can then work for every single person, because everybody's different. Everybody's different, so wired differently. So this connection to self, for me, as we're talking about it, is amplifying even more, because it's us. It's us as individuals. It's the unique nature of the relationship of the physical, emotional, spiritual, psychological. The whole being of us. So that's really interesting. So again, I've noticed people coming in and out, which is fine, not a problem. I want to just put this out there in terms of the YouTube version of this. Comment, like, subscribe, do all the things that you can do in YouTube. Across the Facebook pages, the video content that we're sharing will be there. And it is all about connecting with self, with being human. You're going to share with us stomach. I mentioned that sometimes things sort of tend to perhaps go to the stomach a little bit for me.
Yeah. Well, the stomach one is quite a bigger explanation, so I'll just try and go through the brief part at the start.
Yeah.
So I was just looking at the back pain there, because that's kind of what we get a lot with people. So for stomach problems, and this can go down, there's many different routes this can go down, but it says a lot of people can feel obligated to accept the family's emotional burdens. This is a result of feeling obligated to make up for being a bad person or for causing problems. The family did not exercise healthy boundaries. One person's problem was everyone else's problem, and those who did not suffer along with the rest were considered unsupportive or were punished or isolated. It can also mean you were not allowed to cry. You have developed a survival instinct to lay low. You never knew when the next emotional outburst was going to strike. The body is always ready to fight or flight as a result. It might produce too much gastric acid. It often relates to a person who is trying to rid themselves of circumstances that are triggering old traumas. And this goes on for about 2 pages. But what I find is when I work with people, I don't look at this book. This is the metaphysical anatomy book. So there's it's got explanations for everything.
Light reading, yeah.
I don't look at this when I'm working with people, but after it, I'll have a look into it.
Okay.
And I've worked with somebody who had sit bone pain. She'd been waiting for a month to see physio. She hadn't been able to work. She wasn't going to the gym. She was basically feeling like crippled. We done a session, and the following morning she messaged me saying, I feel like I could run a marathon. It just went.
Right. Wow.
Because we identified the trigger of why it had been brought on in the first place, and the pain just went. Also, I'd worked with somebody else and around why she was struggling to lose weight. And a couple of months later, she went back to a whole load of grief, 20 years worth of suppressed emotion. And I want to express it's not talk therapy. It's not a majorly deep set, but it can trigger the emotions to come up, and then everything can just feel clearer. But after that session, she was also going to have bowel polyps removed. And when she went for the pre-op, the bowel polyps had already gone. Now, we can't say that was anything to do with the session, obviously. Scientifically, we can't make that statement, but she'd been suffering about a year, and they weren't there. She didn't have to have the operation. And
there's definitely a physical reaction to emotion, isn't there?
Yeah, when I looked up bowel polyps in this, the stuff that we worked on in the session was what it described was the emotions maybe stuck behind that had caused bowel polyps or possibly caused bowel polyps. But again, like things like back pain, a lot of people have back pain and stuff, and that's like middle back is feeling responsible for others. Lower back, financial responsibilities, other needs, burdens, feeling under pressure. Back in general is like support, structure, responsibility, stability. And again, like I've been doing this for 2 years now, and when I do work with somebody around physical, even without looking at this book beforehand and just going by, I just go by the person, so that, because everybody's different, you know.
Yeah.
So, but when I come and I look up this book, I think, wow, it pretty much describes what we worked on in the session without even trying. So it shows how it can all be connected. And I found this, when I worked on thyroid, that was around the emotion of not feeling heard. As soon as I started working on that and working on grief and stuff, my thyroid, all those issues started balancing out once I'd worked with those emotions. And what I loved was, again, like I said, it's not talk therapy. I'm not a therapist. There's no re-traumatizing. We acknowledge certain things that come up. We've got a very good way of like finding what it is we need to work on without talking through everything. And we just go in there, work with it, allow the emotion to come up and do what we need to do to kind of rewire the brain so the body stops responding like the way it is in this moment in time when it's actually responding to something that maybe happened years ago.
I think it's really important at this point to ask you, please, Tracy, to send links, particularly for the YouTube version of what we're sharing today.
Yeah.
Because they can go in the description.
Yeah.
Because there may well, of course, be people watching, listening, feeling something's missing. So from their self, I would suggest that's probably quite a lot of people, but they're doing other things, they're trying things, it's working in a way, but they're feeling like, I just feel there's something else for me.
Yeah, and it's not about saying, like I say this a lot, I come from an NHS background and I'm very much work alongside the doctor.
Yeah.
I'm not, I love a little bit of woo-woo and spirituality and stuff. I'm a very logical person, and I'm a very, safety is very important to me.
Yeah.
So like, I've worked with people who have maybe been seeing psychiatrists, and I'll see them, a couple of days before they see the psychiatrist, and then they've been able to reduce medication off from working with us both, but in a different way. So I meet with people and make sure that I'm right with them, and make sure they're right for this type of work, and that they have the right support around them outside of working with me. So it is about working with everybody as a complete to find what works for each individual.
Superb. And I know you're across social media, Tracy LC Wilson. I know what we're doing is available in different places. There at the finish of this live, I will create an audio for Spotify. So, being human, shaking up our wondrous being. Let's begin the reform already has last week's episode as an audio. I also know the Creative Shake-Up Show, again in Spotify. You share a weekly message, 5 to 6 minutes there or thereabouts, of a mind hack, a life hack, really life-affirming messages. And for me as a creator, I just feel it might sound like a negative conclusion from me. I just don't understand why people try to segregate and separate things. So it's almost like, like I said earlier, spiritual science. There are elements of everything in the work you're doing, in the work I'm doing. Creatively, there's a pattern, there's a format, there's a formula. There's rhythm, there's mathematical equations of music. It works. But there's also that thing that you cannot explain. That this music comes from somewhere and the influence comes from somewhere, and you think, wow. So through what we're doing, I want it to be the most human message, and it is. So reaching out to those watching, I want to give you a little bit of time to think about what you think might be a good subject for next week. And I think there will be a 5 to 6 minute message in the Spotify, the Creative Shake-Up Show, similar to what people have heard here.
Yeah.
But also I want to perhaps look ahead to Friday, August the 8th, 2 p.m. That's when we're going to be together next live. And people can catch up, they can replay here, become involved, comment. What do you think might be the topic for the live, just under a week?
Well, I've been thinking about that, because obviously today we've been talking about connecting with self.
Yeah.
But I think what I find a lot of people's struggles are is it's very hard to connect with ourselves when we're trying to respond to everything and everybody around us. So like connection with others, connection with like real life. Because at the end of the day, we can connect with ourselves in any way we want, but if we are not able to deal and respond to life in a particular way, there's still going to be that connection's not going to be quite as tight as it could be.
Absolutely. So how do we connect with self in the context of the challenge of trying to connect with multiple other beings? Connecting with themselves. Maybe that might be a two-parter. Because I think that's big. That's big. I think
everybody's responding on some level, so we're all responding to emotions, and that's why everything can just seem like a bit of a mess at times, can't it? And it just feels like, well, how can I sort myself out when they're the problem, So
is that my emotion, or is it their emotion, or is it past emotion, or is it walking round? I'm sensing feelings and emotions of other people in a supermarket, for example. What's this feeling I've got? Is it actually mine?
Yeah.
or does it belong to somebody else? So
Yeah.
I think that will be absolutely amazing. We want people to respond.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned that a couple of times, but it's important because that's how things begin to open up more. I've kind of pretty much worked out how I think. I'm fairly sure you've pretty much worked out how you think. And
Yeah.
of course, that's an ever-changing thing as well. I like it when other people perhaps might put a thought in and say, have you thought about this? So I think ahead of Friday, August the 8th, 2 p.m, I'm actually putting a preemptive comment in for people.
Yeah.
How do you navigate yourself? Connection with you, being you, whilst navigating that with other people being them.
Mm-hmm.
And or, without promoting perhaps what could be loaded comments, where is that a challenge at times?
Yeah.
Why is that a challenge at times? Because then I think for both of us, Tracy, yourself particularly, we've got comments coming through then. So that can be in Facebook, that can be in YouTube, for people to say, how do they connect with themselves and navigate connecting with others, and or equally find it difficult to do that?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important. It'd be really good to be able to, because not everybody needs to be going for coaching, counselling, or whatever. A lot of what I learned was just through watching things like this, hearing other people speak and sharing their things. So that's what I want to give back as well. Whereas, I can help people on that deeper level, as can you with what you do. But I also want to be able to just give little tips and help along the way that people just might want to just make little tweaks themselves or see what identifies with them. Because it's not all about you have to come and work with a coach to do it. It's quite possible to completely retrain, rewire your brain and your habits and everything yourself. Yes, it might feel hard depending where you're at in life, but it is possible. So give yourself that chance first.
That's a wonderfully affirming conclusion. Wonderful to be with you, Tracy, and being human, shaking up our wondrous being. We are beginning a reform. We always are, all of us. We can reform at any moment, and really looking forward to being with you next time, which at time of recording is Friday, August the 8th, 2 p.m. Take care, Tracy, and everyone. See you next time.
Take care.
Bye-bye.